Podcast 3, The Great Debate.
Awaken the leader inside. Follow the path of leadership. Never give up. Never stop trying. Get up. Believe in yourself. Not every day is going to be easy, but you got to challenge yourself. You need courage. Be ready. Stop waiting for it to happen. Go make it happen. Harness the power within. You were destined to be a leader. Follow the path of leadership. Awaken the leader inside.
Podcast 3, The Great Debate. All right, welcome back, you guys, to another podcast. I'm your host, Dave Rubalcava, and today we are going to talk about something that I think is earth-shattering. Okay, maybe it's not earth-shattering, but I think it's very, very important, especially as we're talking about building a foundation for you to grow as a leader, or like I said, if you're an experienced leader and you hit a roadblock, I think it's really important to understand some very basic fundamentals, and then we'll continue to build on top of that. So this one is called The Great Debate, right? So we talk about manager, leader, which one's more impactful, which one has more long-term effects on the growth of your team, which one is going to develop your business to be more successful. So I think it's really important that we kind of break them down individually. So I want to talk about a manager and kind of my perspective, and keep in mind, I'm giving the disclaimer right now, this is my feelings towards what I feel a manager is, and then we'll talk about leadership. Okay, so let's talk about being a manager. There's some common traits that, as I look back on my career, and don't get me wrong, this is my own personal experience, so this may vary for some of you guys, but I've noticed that there's some very common traits when I look at a manager versus thinking about a leader. And when I think about a manager, I really feel like that's someone that just tells somebody what to do. I need you to get this done, but not really investing in how to develop somebody. They just kind of expect the results. Sometimes they're very operational driven, meaning we got to get tasks, we need to get workloads, we need to get bottom line, we need to get the execution done, versus being people driven and figuring out how to do that through people, or building morale, or thinking long-term result. And I want you to think about some of these past managers that you have, and hopefully it'll ring a bell. But I'll be honest with you, most of the managers that I had, they didn't really inspire me. They didn't inspire me to want to do better. They didn't make me feel like, yeah, I want to come in and do better for you or the company. It was more of, I'm coming in and just doing my job. But I also got the feeling that they just worked for a company. It wasn't like, hey guys, we need to do this. It's the company said we need to do this. I don't understand why we're doing, I don't know. The company said for us to do this, right? So that was kind of the approach or the impression that I used to get towards some of those managers. And I also realized that they did a lot of micromanaging. So I don't know about you guys, but I don't really feel like when someone's micromanaging me and they're breathing down my neck and constantly following up and constantly giving direction or changing direction, I really don't feel that's an effective way to do better at my job. If anything, it puts a lot of pressure on me. I also realized that a lot of managers often seemed overwhelmed. So when projects or deadlines or things were happening, that they were under the gun, and they were definitely sharing that pressure with the team. And then there was something that kind of always bothered me when I think about some of the managers, and it was they were a victim in all of it. And so it was never their fault. It was somebody else's fault. It was the team's fault. It was the company's fault. They changed something, and it was just never their own fault. For some reason, they're the victim in all of this, which meant that they didn't really hold themselves accountable for what was happening, or accountable for the results or lack of results. They offered excuses instead. And then one of the most detrimental things I realized looking back on a manager, and keep in mind, I feel like I was a manager at some point early in my career, the unwillingness to change or adapt in an environment is probably the most common characteristic of a manager. Is that this is how we've done it for 20 years. This is how we've done it. The model has always been this. This is what we've done. And then we just kind of never change. And if you're growing as a leader and you've been in business for a while, business is changing and things are just not the same the way that they used to be, which means that doing the same thing every day that we've done over the years may not necessarily deliver the greatest results, right? I think we can all agree that happens. The question is, Why? Why do we get to that point where we're unwilling to change or adapt? So we're going to look at some other traits in leadership, and then we're going to kind of compare and contrast. And then I'll let you kind of think about, over your career, who you saw, or maybe you currently are a manager versus those that inspired you, and they were really a leader and had an impact on your career. So, but I do want to talk about a leader, and there is some very common traits in a leader. I want to talk about their ability to develop others, to invest in others, to lead by example when things are tough. And you think about all the times in your career or even life when things got tough and you feel like I'm kind of at my breaking point, that this individual is going to be, you know what, let's do it. I have your back. Let's make it happen. This is the goal. We're going to go after it. And I just want you to give it your best. And you're just going to go out there and you're going to make it happen. They somehow jump in there with you in the trenches and say, let's go. They're going to lead the charge. They have the uncanny ability to inspire others, right? So think about someone that you've worked with, or think about a colleague, a friend, even a family member that really truly inspires you to become better and pushes you and challenges you and makes you want to become a better leader. Another trait is that a leader often finds a way to get commitment versus compliance. And so you think about that. Well, what the heck does that mean? It's when you get the team, they want to buy into whatever your direction you're going, whatever goals you've set there. They are committed to do whatever it takes versus compliance where, you have to do this or there's going to be a consequence. A leader is very, very team orientated. They're looking at the big picture and they're thinking about the team versus themselves. And when I think about a leader, they are the face of the company. They are when I'll give you an example. When I get communication down from the company, it isn't like, hey, the company says we need to do this. I'm relaying that message as if it's coming from me. It's like, look, team, this is the goal. This is what we're going to go after. We're going to go make this happen. And, let's come up with a game plan and we're going to go make it happen. And that kind of ties into them being goal orientated. They always have goals and they always find ways to follow up with those goals. Another characteristic that I think is probably the most critical or has been the most critical for me, and I'm not going to lie, it's very challenging, is empowering others to grow, to make decisions, to lead the charge. It's growing other people by empowering them to make decisions. We'll talk about that one in great detail in another podcast because I think that one is really critical. So we'll talk about that in detail. And another thing that I notice is that the leaders are never a victim, ever. It's all right. I got some bad cards dealt to me. The company's having issues. It's falling onto my lap. We're going to go out and make it happen. We're going to go out and fix it anyway. So they never play a victim. And another trait that I feel is very critical is adaptability. And if I had to give you some advice right now into which one has been a key factor into my growth as a leader, my growth into becoming stronger and better at what I do, is my level of adaptability. And you talk about that. What does that mean? It means your ability to adapt to your environment and to adapt to business needs, adapt to finding another solution. You are kind of just stepping back and trying to find the best solution for whatever's present at the moment and being more of a situational leader and adapting to whatever is coming your way. So if you're doing great and this week all of a sudden 5 people quit, you're going to shift gears immediately to adapt to your business needs at the moment. And granted, you're going to have to find a way to still balance, but you're going to adapt to the situation very quickly to take action. So let's switch gears really quick, and I want to share a story with you. So I love storytelling. I think it's a great way of sharing information in a different way that we're used to versus a very direct approach. I think stories sometimes bring out different layers of things that might help you see things from a different lens. And I'm all about figuring out how to see things and share things through a different lens, because I think that's how we learn. We kind of get those aha moments when we start to see something from a different angle, and that's how we grow. So I want to share the story of a parent that has 3 kids. single parent, single father, has 3 kids, and every day he comes home and he's trying to keep the house in order. He's trying to help the kids with homework, and he's really starting to struggle and fall behind. But I'm gonna tell you something in this story. The father never teaches his children how to help, how to contribute, how to maybe clean the bathroom, or maybe even sweep the floors or pick up after themselves. He just kind of tries to be super dad and do everything for them. And after a while, things start to get a lot more difficult as he's carrying burdens and stress from work and things that are going on outside. And he's still trying to maintain a household by himself. And things start to become difficult, and he starts to get frustrated, and he starts to let things out onto the kids sometimes, maybe just because he's exhausted or overstressed. And I want you to think about this, and I know it seems kind of silly, but I want you to think about, this is what managers sometimes do. They sometimes take on too much and put things onto their plate. And they, even though it'll take a little more time to show people how to do things, just like these, let's say the kids, teach them how to clean up, teach them how to fold their clothes, teach them how to help throw out the trash. We start to delegate things to them and teach them things and how to do something more than what they're just doing right now. And in this story, this father is taking on all 100 of different types of things that are happening in the household, versus maybe he has to only take on 10, and he can teach his other children to take on 10, or he can teach them to take on a few more things. And over time, they start to contribute, they start to help things, and it gets a little bit easier, it gets a little bit more freedom, so that, hey, we can spend time going out to the park now, we can spend time going out and doing things because I'm not doing all of this stuff by myself. Now let's see if we can tie it all together. You think about everything, and we compare and we contrast. You have leaders that inspire somebody versus a manager that maybe doesn't. You have a leader that spends time and invests in somebody versus a manager that maybe does not and just demands things from you. Or you have a leader that has the ability to develop and nurture and build leaders versus a manager that doesn't invest in people at all. At the end of the day, when you look at something like this, and this story is, it's a very simple story, but when you think about it, you're investing your time into people, and their output is going to be tenfold versus what you can only do by yourself. I think it all stems down to something very simple. So why do people choose to be a manager versus a leader? I'm going to tell you something, guys. You're going to be surprised at it. It's because it's easier to be a manager. It's easier to only care about myself and my stress. It's easier to only worry about my career, not their career. It's easier to make excuses versus saying, you know what, no, I made a mistake, let me fix it, or let me get my team on track. It's easier to be a manager, and that's the truth. It's just easier to do that. Being a leader takes time, takes commitment, takes nurturing, takes a high level of patience. Just like those children, it takes so much patience to teach them these things. Meanwhile, you're like, just do it, just get it done. It takes a lot of nurturing to get people to perform at a level that they have never thought they can perform at. And that is the essence of being a true leader, is inspiring people to become something they never thought they could become, to perform at a level that they never even thought they could do, and building their confidence to do things that they didn't think is possible. That is the definition of a true leader. It's bringing out the best in every single player. Now you have to decide, which one do you want to be? Stay tuned for the next podcast. Always remember, awaken the leader inside.